So welcome everybody to the third episode in a four-part series in my podcast in making the most of 2020. If you're watching this on one of the podcast channels or listening on one of the podcast channels, watching it on YouTube or IGTV, hey, I'm really delighted that we can share the next 10 minutes or so together. So Albert Einstein is accredited with the saying in defining insanity, saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. My version of the same thing is if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you've got. So what this means for us in 2020 is if we do what we've always done in the past, what we did in 2019, we're going to get the same results, but if we're going to do something different, we'll possibly get a different result. So in this episode, I want to speak about making the most of your talent, and in doing so that we will get 100% return of our talent. So let's get ready for that. So as I said, I want to speak about making the most of whatever talent you have. I mean, you remember the reality TV idols, which I think is still around. And I remember those early episodes before it was kind of sanitized. You'd get those guys who would come before the judges and they really just couldn't sing. And Simon Cowell would make some sort of derogatory remark about them.
No, it didn't work, sweetheart.
I have a degree in vocal performance.
All right, Brenna, it's a no, darling.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Is there anything that I can do to improve?
Leave.
And everybody knows, those of us who are watching on TV, the judges, that those people are actually useless. They don't have enough talent. No matter how much passion they got, they just don't have the talent. So the truth of the matter is when we speak about living the dream and we talk about achieving anything, well, it's going to be limited by talent. I mean, I understand how this talent thing works. I mean, there are just some people who seem to be able to hit the ball further, to run faster, to think quicker, to excel in business in all kinds of spheres. And it seems that they're just ahead of so many of the rest of us. So how do we do this? So how does this all work? How can we achieve 100% return on talent? Well, the whole distribution of talent thing is interesting, isn't it? You can have two children born to the same parents who grew up in the same environment, and the one potentially has the ability to excel beyond the other. And you think, well, how did this happen? I know for me, when I started out in ministry, my ambition kind of exceeded my talent. And when I hadn't achieved certain things by a certain stage or time in my life, I realized that I may not be as talented as some who seem, in my opinion, to have achieved a great deal in a shorter amount of time. And it was kind of a sobering experience to me, but when I began to look into the scriptures and discovered particularly Matthew 25, I really began to understand that there's this kind of principle that we need to discover around talent. Now, if you're familiar with Matthew 25, it's the story where Jesus tells the story of the rich man who distributes talents or money to his servants. To the one he gives 5, to the other one he gives 2, and to the other one he gives 1. And in essence, he says, I'm going away, and when I come back, I'm going to call for an account of those talents, of what you did with those talents. To the guy who gave 5, he comes back, the master comes back, and he says to the guy who did 5, how many have you got? He says, here's your 5, and here's 5 more. To the guy with 2 talent, he says, here's your 2, and here's 2 more. And the guy who's got 1 talent, interestingly enough, he says, I know that you were going to call me to account. I know that you're going to be severe with the accountability side of it. So what I took the 1 talented, I buried it, and now here it is, and I'm scot-free. And the master really doesn't appreciate that man's attitude. In fact, in the Message version of the Bible, we read that Jesus says, as he tells the story in Matthew 25, he says, take the 1,000 and give it to the one who risked the most. And get rid of this, play it safe. He won't go out on a limb. Throw him into utter darkness. You see, I realized I needed to right size my talent. And this parable began to kind of illustrate to me some principles about talent. So these are some of the things I went through. They're kind of 6 things that I went through. The first thing is I realized in my particular field, as with most things, I'm about a too talented person. I'm not an excessively talented person. And so for me, I really had to right size that and get that straight in my head. It wasn't the end because I realized there is 100% return on whatever level talent you can have. So the second thing was about that you need to be brave. You need to take some risks. You can see that the master is intolerant of the 1 talented guy who just buried his talent because potentially he never had what the other guys had. But the expectation was that whatever he had, he would take some risks with that talent. And so for me, again, it's in the first 2 episodes of this particular series where I speak about getting small victories, to take some kind of risk and get a small victory. Take a risk and start with what you have. And that's what those first 2 episodes were about. So the third aspect is that I learned was that I needed to be faithful with what I have. Later on in this kind of story that Jesus tells, he speaks about those who are faithful with little will be trusted with more. And so when I understood this, and I kind of tried to say, what does it mean to be faithful with the talent I have? Well, for me, it meant that I need to show up. I need to bring whatever talent I've got and bring that in. And being faithful meant that I needed to stop comparing and complaining, because what I would do is I'd look at others who were in the same field as me, and it seemed that they achieved more than I did in less amount of time. And so I would kind of feel hard done by. I'd complain and compare. And if I was going to be faithful, I needed to stop doing that. Fourth aspect, as I've made kind of already mention of this in a way, is the whole issue around timing. I realized that for me, it's going to take me longer to do what others would do in a shorter amount of time, simply because of my talent levels. This is not a statement of derogatory about myself or just being hard on myself. It's just a simple fact. I know that some people just seem to be able to do things. They latch on quicker. And as a result of that, they seem to achieve more faster. And that's fine. Those of us who maybe don't have a 5-talented life, we just have to realize that it may take us longer to get to a place in our lives. The fifth aspect was the area around focus. Now, this is quite an interesting one in my particular field of ministry, because I watched and observed other pastors who would travel. They would go to other churches, and some of them even other countries, and their influence and their talent would make a difference beyond the realm of their own local church. I wasn't one of those guys. I'm the type of guy that I had to kind of put all my energy, all my effort, all my focus on the one task that was before me. As much as I would have loved to have influence beyond that, it wasn't going to be like that in my case. And that's fine, because with my level of talent, I had to give more focus to what I was doing. And the final aspect is the aspect of teams. Many years ago, Jessica gave me this birthday card, and it had a picture of the 1995 World Cup team. And the captain of the 95 World Cup rugby team, that is, was a chap named Francois Pinault. And she kind of took his picture out, she cut it out, and she took a photograph of my face and cut that out, and she kind of put it in over Francois Pinault's face, and she gave me this birthday card. And in a sense, there I was in the middle of the 1995 World Cup rugby team holding the World Cup. And the story of the World Cup, 1995 World Cup rugby team was essentially that the talent that that team had, it wasn't necessarily good enough to win a World Cup. But because they were a team and they played as a team and they had a spirit of the team, they basically performed at a level beyond their abilities. This kind of exponential impact. The fact that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it was 1 + 1 = 4. So I realized that if I was going to live my dreams, if I was going to accomplish more than what my talent ability, then I would have to kind of build a team. And so I began to become focused about building a team of talented people. So as I kind of talk about these things, I wonder how you feel about 2020. Now, if you're a highly talented person, and I've watched this as well, people who are extremely talented, they still have the responsibility of going through an area of focus, an area of timing, and an area of building teams and working hard at their talent. People don't achieve things purely because they're talented. They achieve things because they apply faithfulness and effort to whatever talent they have. So I want to invite you in 2020 to kind of really see how you can right-size your talent, and that you would not just play it safe all the time, but you start building a series of small victories and doing an inventory of what you have, and that you'd be faithful, that you'd show up, that even in hard times, you're going to have setbacks and it's going to be difficult, but you're not going to bail out, that you'll be willing to go over the long haul, that you remain focused. You won't get FOMO, fear of missing out, because what so often happens, people shift their focus because they think there's the golden ticket or the silver bullet that's going to give them an exponential shift in their lives. But that you seek out the help of others. I would love it if you even help me by subscribing to my channels or liking me, whatever those various social media platforms are about. But I think for more than anything, my prayer for all of us is that in 2020, that regardless of the difficulty of what the year promises and what the circumstances are around about us, that we'll kind of have this idea that we can get 100% return on our talent. I mean, let's face it, if we look at this parable that Jesus says, if we be faithful what we have, then we'll be entrusted with more. And if we're faithful with the more, then we'll be entrusted with even more beyond that. So I'm absolutely convinced. I feel like I've experienced this in my own life, and I really pray that you'll experience an exponential change and shift in whatever level of talent that you have. Hope this makes sense to you. I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to make a comment, direct message me, whatever it is, and I'd love to hear your story as well. So God bless you. Thanks for being with me for this time, and we'll catch you on episode 4, where I will be speaking about one of my favorite verses in the Bible from the book of Proverbs. And until then, God bless you.